I'm playing Dub Conscious in the background. Adrian Zelski, HGH Seed, International Hemp Exchange.
This is 89.
Oh, I'm going to fix this.
Yeah.
A little. $10.89.
That's right.
Outstanding. Live from the Mighty Veedverks Airship, I'm Travis Lippert, CEO of Verks Unlimited, better known as Veedverks.
And I'm Julie Richardson, Marketing Director for Colorado NORML, and today we have with us Michael Elliott.
Hello. Glad to be here.
And that's an announcement. We haven't formally said anything yet publicly about me taking that position, so our viewers are the first to hear that I get this honor, and I'm super, super excited to be working with you. And we're going to change some things and write some great legislation.
Well, that's the plan. Yeah, I'm happy to be here today to talk about House Bill 1089. We have an upcoming hearing, and I think we got time to go into the details of the bill, sort of the arguments for and against, and why it's important. So I'm happy to go into all those details.
Outstanding. First, can I thank Sensi Magazine for allowing us to use the hangar to do this show.
Be good. Thank you for the continued water.
Yes, appreciate that. And I want to tell people that the Kansas Highway Patrol now has a class action lawsuit against it for pulling over out-of-state drivers, such as me.
Mm-hmm.
And
can you tell us your experience? What happened?
I was driving back. My dad had pancreatic cancer, and I drove to Topeka to go see him. And on the way back, I got pulled over for no reason whatsoever. And this, they told me it was a failure to, signal, doing a lane change without signaling 100 yards or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I always signal. And my car has a little, boop, you pump it once and it blinks 3 times. And I did the math on it, and going the speed limit which I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
I signaled for twice as long as is required by law.
Yeah, because don't you go over the top cleaning your car, making sure everything is just perfect before you even cross the state line?
Before I go into Kansas.
Yeah, you are super attentive.
What was
to all
happening?
those things.
It was snowy outside. Just the roads were treacherous. I-70 was treacherous. I started off in Lawrence. I drove through Topeka. There was a wreck, and as I was driving through where they narrowed traffic down to one lane, I saw this guy go on my license plate and do this bit into his walkie-talkie on his shoulder. And about, 30, 45 treacherous miles later, all of a sudden this cop pulls up on me on my back bumper and slams on his brakes. And I'm in a rear wheel drive. I'm, not exceeding the speed limit. I am, and I'm scared, right? But I, signal and get out of his way, and he speeds past me and then stops, and I pass him again. Then he came up behind me and turned on his lights and kept me by the side of the road for 15 minutes while he tried to radio in a drug dog, is what I think. And, I'm a Colorado resident. I have weed in my car a lot. I've been in the hemp industry for 4 years now. I've had hemp all over my car. They could bring in a drug dog and just, woo-woo. And we know that the drug dogs are trained to smell either beta-caryophyllene or caryophyllene oxide anyway. I've had tons of terpenes in my car. I was gonna be one of those examples, but fortunately for me, the weather was so bad that he had to go do real police work. Before the drug dog could get there, he had to go save somebody, on the side of the road. But that's bullshit, and I want to be part of that class action lawsuit.
Who who's leading this class action lawsuit? Like, is it Colorado people that are suing?
It's two. I think the lead plaintiffs on the lawsuit are two brothers from Oklahoma who were pulled over for an Oklahoma license plate. Mm-hmm. How many times is that? I mean, I've been talking about it for over a year now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
About getting pulled over. So I want to be part of that. And I also, that guy in Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
That lit up the joint in court. This guy, what's his name? Tennessee man, Spencer Allen Boston, that was in court for a simple possession charge and lit up a joint and addressed the jury and said, I think, ladies and gentlemen, we deserve better than this. Then, so he spent 10 days in jail. But props to that guy. I would love to talk to him. Get him on Skype. I want to hear exactly. My only concern for him is he's 20. So he was, that was probably some extra risk that I wouldn't have taken if I were him, but props to him. But we've got people in Colorado who are being denied employment or being fired because they're using cannabis. Off duty.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to talk about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Colorado House Bill 20-1089.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So tell us what that's all about.
Sure.
Wait, first tell us what you do. You're a lawyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm an attorney. Most of my legal career has been spent in cannabis. So I graduated from law school in 2010, and that was that time in Colorado when licensing just became required for medical marijuana businesses and all the regulations passed. So that was a real interesting time for me to get in right as the licensed industry was getting started. And I ran a trade association for over 5 years in Colorado and did a lot of work at the state capitol. We were very intimately involved with the state legislature, passing laws there, implementing Amendment 64 after that passed in 2012, and then the regulations. And then I've been involved in a number of local fights as well. And I'm from Colorado Springs, so we had a big win down there in 2010 to allow licensed medical marijuana businesses, and we could, And then of course Colorado Springs hasn't allowed the recreational businesses, which is painful to me, and there's rumblings that it could happen this year. But so I've been involved in a number of local fights, including in Denver as well, and there you go. So that's, I guess, my quick background, but I do more traditional legal stuff too. But here we are, like this whole thing about this lawful off-duty activity statute. I think a lot of people that have been around a while probably remember the Coates versus Dish Network case, which was a Colorado Supreme Court case in 2015. Mm-hmm. And the quick sum is that case ended awfully for cannabis. And
Will you tell us about the case? Brandon Coates worked for Dish Network. He's in a wheelchair, right?
He's paraplegic.
He's paraplegic, and he was using cannabis after work,
off duty,
to treat his symptoms.
Yeah, when you look at the facts of the case, you start off by thinking, oh, this is an amazing set of facts. He's like the perfect plaintiff to be challenging something like this. And then, of course, we lost, and it became the worst set of facts imaginable. Because, I think what's quite frustrating about the case is that, Brandon Coates was a legit medical marijuana patient with doctor's recommendations, getting it legally. Like, all of this was settled in the case. Like, everyone agreed on the facts that he was not impaired at work. He wasn't using at work. It was all outside. But random drug tests happened by Dish Network, and they terminated him. And that's, so he sued Dish Network under one of the arguments was about the lawful off-duty activity statute. And this statute, we can talk a little bit more about this, but this is a 30-year long-standing statute here in Colorado. It was passed in 1990, originally to protect cigarette smokers from being fired for smoking cigarettes outside of their workplace. That's where it started, but it has been expanded to apply to all lawful off-duty activities in Colorado, all of them. So that would include consuming alcohol. There is one exception to the lawful off-duty activity statute, though, in Colorado. That one exception, cannabis consumption. And we get back to the case of the whole case of Coates versus Dish Network came down to the definition of this word, lawful. And Brandon Coates was arguing that his conduct was lawful. And the Colorado Supreme Court disagreed and basically said that because cannabis is still federally illegal, it is not lawful in terms of federal law, and that they, as the Colorado Supreme Court, were not going to change the definition of lawful to make it more narrow and apply just to state law. And so the Colorado Supreme Court really throws it back to the state legislature and says, if you all want to define lawful in more specific terms, go ahead and do so. But that the Supreme Court were not going to do it. So Brandon Coates lost, but we get here to this bill, House Bill 1089. It is an extremely short bill, and what it does is basically say that the lawful off-duty activity statute, that word lawful is for purposes of state law, not federal law. That is the crux of the bill.
Right.
So the text of the bill is...
Yeah, or can people see this?
Yeah.
Great. So, here's the main text of the bill. It's concerning clarification that the prohibition on an employer terminating an employee for the employee's lawful off-duty activities extends to activities that are lawful under state law, even if those activities are not lawful under federal law.
Outstanding.
If you go down a little bit here, let me read this legislative declaration too, because this is the whole reason why we're doing this, the purpose, and I think it makes our best argument, which is that, state law prohibits employers from terminating employees for lawful off-duty activities, including the off-duty consumption of alcohol. And then although this is the Amendment 64 in the Constitution requires that marijuana be regulated in a manner similar to alcohol, employers are currently allowed to terminate employees for off-duty consumption of marijuana. And by clarifying that the prohibition on termination for lawful off-duty activities includes activities that are lawful under state law, even if not lawful under federal law, the statute will be brought into harmony with the requirements of the Colorado Constitution, Amendment 64. So I think the rest of this, if you're looking at bills at home here, really the new language is what's being put into capital letters there, and we're striking a few things, but as basically just clarifying here that this statute that applies to every other lawful off-duty activity in Colorado needs to apply to cannabis as well, because it's lawful under state law.
So, does this exempt federal employees?
Yes. This is a state law in Colorado, and the state of Colorado cannot tell the federal government what their federal employee policies are going to be. So,
how about defense contractors? I
think when we this law in general, let me just judge to this. That there are exceptions that are built into the lawful off-duty activity statute already. So you can't see it here on this bill language because the exceptions are not being changed at all.
Right.
But there are two exceptions. So these two exceptions, the first one is, this is where basically an employer could have a policy that allows them to forbid off-duty lawful activities. And so, I'll give you some examples here of things that might apply. Something like an airline pilot or an emergency room doctor, or perhaps people that are operating heavy machinery, things like that. But the exception that's currently in place is in the current statute as it exists. It says it relates to a bona fide occupational requirement. A bona fide occupational requirement. And that it cannot be a full exclusion of all employees of the employer. So that an employer really needs to have a reason why this certain occupation should be exempted from the law. So that's already built into the statute. We're not changing that. And so if we win this bill, those exceptions are going to apply.
So what does Brandon do, or what did he do at Dish Network?
I believe he was a customer service operator, so he was on the phone.
So companies won't be able to just say, "Oh, it's absolutely critical that he not be high and mess up a customer service call," right?
I think we get back to bona fide occupational requirement. I think that's probably not bona fide.
Yeah.
It's got to be something. Yeah, and I think there's been some confusion about this language and what exactly it means, but this exemption, is what it applies to every other lawful off-duty activity, including alcohol and cigarettes and all that stuff. So there's 30 years of Colorado history with this language. So if the statute is good enough right now for alcohol, we want to make it work for cannabis.
How about cops? How about Aurora cops? You can drink on duty in Aurora.
Yeah.
But can you smoke weed off duty in Aurora under this new bill?
I'm not sure I know the precise answer to that question.
I think
What
a lot
I
more
want-
cops need CBD,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, they do. Instead of alcohol.
I-
I want my doctor
I
to
wish
be able
cops
to use
could
it.
smoke weed. If we could get that done for state cops.
Well, alcohol tends to make people reckless and aggressive, and cannabis tends to pacify people. These aren't solid rules or anything, but there's plenty of people too in law enforcement that are dealing with their own trauma, and whether that's from military experience or from having a difficult job. But it's tough to do those jobs, and it certainly seems like something like cannabis can help perhaps not escalate conflicts the way that alcohol seems to just make people do stupid things that they regret.
Yeah. Does House Bill 1089 address pre-employment drug screening?
No. And, it would, I could see a very good argument for, that is a different bill that, by the way, I think should be passed, but it's not what we're doing here. And the reason why I think we sort of honed in on amending the lawful off-duty activity statute is because alcohol consumption is clearly protected by the lawful off-duty activity statute. Cannabis should be as well. So, pre-employment drug testing, the state of Nevada passed a bill. I think they were one of the first to do this about a year ago, which it basically it disallows employers from. Let me say that differently. It is about pre-employment cannabis drug testing. If somebody fails that test, they cannot be denied the job because they failed the cannabis pre-employment drug test. I believe they've got to be given a second opportunity to pass it. I think it's a good law. It's just not what we're doing with this bill.
How about people employed in truck driving positions?
Yeah, I believe that they would have certain licensing that would there's a good chance that they would be...
Because they're regulated by the Department of Transportation?
Yes, and so they would probably not have the protections of this state law.
So the DOT cutoff is 50 nanograms per milliliter for their... They'll do... This is my understanding. I called Quest Laboratories to talk about it. But 50 nanograms per milliliter is their flag you and go use more precise cutoffs. And I think 100 nanograms per milliliter is the cutoff for THC for a DOT job. The Colorado law, if I'm correct, says that 5 nanograms per milliliter is the level for impairment if you're driving, for example, like that. Do you know?
I'm familiar with this. Yeah, this was actually these DUID bills were in 2011, 12, and 13. This is where these bills came up every year at the state legislature, and they got killed many, many times until...
We got one last year. What got killed too?
Yeah, that's right. That one was a little bit different, but this one was specifically law enforcement and the district attorneys, they were the main ones pushing for this bill back in 2011, and they wanted to create a level very similar to what we have in alcohol, where there is a solid level that if you have I think it's still 0.08 right now or 0.05, that level, if you have that amount of alcohol in your system, you are considered impaired. You cannot argue about that. You just are considered impaired. So law enforcement primarily, they wanted to do the same thing with cannabis. The thing is, though, that even though cannabis and alcohol maybe have some similarities and are supposed to regulate them in a similar manner, cannabis does not. Is very different than alcohol in terms of how how the body processes it. And I mean, basically, I'll explain it this way. The amount of alcohol in your brain that's impairing you and the amount that's in your blood, they dissipate at the same level. Like when you're no longer impaired, it's no longer in your blood. They're parallel. With cannabis, it's not that way at all. You can be this impaired, and but then what's in your blood could be doing something like this. And it's different between edibles versus smoking. And the point is that it can be in your blood even when you're not impaired. Mm-hmm. But we get back to, after years of fighting about it, in 2013, the bill this was right after legalization passed, and the governor wanted a bill like this, and there was a push that something has to be done about DUID, so 5 nanograms got passed, but the compromise was it went from a per se standard to a permissible inference standard. And the quick difference between those is per se, that standard was very strict. Like, you were considered impaired if you had 5 nanograms. For purposes of like going to court and a jury trial, like the jury, you just are impaired if you've got more than 5. Like, the only thing you could argue is maybe the test was done faulty. But you couldn't argue that you were not impaired even though you had 5 or more. With permissible inference, it loosens up the standard and says that it's basically it's permissible or okay for the jury to infer or conclude that you were impaired if you had 5 nanograms, but the jury does not have to. And that means that you can then argue that you were not impaired even though you had 5 nanograms or more. Yeah. So there you go. That's kind of a quick summary of that bill back in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should make a new roadside impairment test where there's a cop with a trailer behind him, and in that trailer is like a driving simulator, like a game, like a race car game or something. And they put you in there, and like if you can't beat like 200 points, then regardless of why you suck at driving, like maybe they should throw you in jail for that. It makes more sense than I've seen these devices where some company's making like I don't know if it's even real, but like some sort of a breathalyzer for weed that's like this long, and it looks like they...
I think those don't work. I know companies have been saying that they do work to show impairment, but we get back to what's in your blood is not the amount that's impairing you.
Right.
And you can there can be a difference. It can be in your blood and not be impairing you. And I don't know, the breathalyzer things I've heard a lot about in the last few years, and I've yet to see one that really seems like it's legit and it works. But what you were saying about actually making it about impairment, I mean, let's get back to the civil liberties issue here of, are we comfortable with the police taking our blood?
No.
It is extremely uncomfortable to talk about.
And you could get shot just negotiating that blood transfer or the blood extraction.
And let me say this slightly differently too, because I don't want to overstate this. The police, they don't take the blood, but they can, basically force you to go to labs and have your blood taken then, and it's still, still the government doing it. It's not exactly a police officer on the side of the road taking your blood. It's not quite that bad. But still, it's a very invasive thing. And if we've got ways of testing for impairments that are more objective,
right,
that seems like a much better way to do it.
And you're absolutely right. I have a girlfriend that if she weighs 90 pounds sopping wet, she's doing good. And she can eat edibles and they have absolutely no effect on her. Whereas if I ate what she ate and then also consumed, I would have to go home and lay down. But it's how the body metabolizes too, and what one person can handle in a nasal spray and transdermal patches, and it's really, they'll never be able to do that with that. It's got to be, how are you impaired, how are you functioning?
Well, it's got to be, but it isn't right now.
It's not.
But it
it's
really
not.
should be the way that I think it goes, is we this sort of fixation on taking people's blood to see if they're impaired, it seems very wrong. Having actual objective impairment tests seem much better, and much more able to assess your skills at being able to do driving. or to do your job.
Right. Well, and if you think about it, there's some certain neurological medicines that you take for a certain period of time. You build up, they test your blood to see your liver levels. And once you get to that level, they know that your body's getting a therapeutic dose. That's how I would like to see cannabis tested medically, in how my body's reacting to it. And then from there, maybe the science could do something like that. But if you think about it as taking it in as a medicine, just like you would any other medicine, and how your body's reacting, that's how you judge it.
Yeah.
So we are going to have an event on the February 19th is our lobby day. But it's also real important that we make sure we have people there in attendance for the vote at 1:30, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Can you explain that a little bit and what we're doing?
Yes, sure. So House Bill 1089, this bill on the lawful off-duty activity statute, its first committee hearing is with the House Business and Labor Committee. February 19th, the committee hearing starts at 1:30. We would like people to come, but we also, let me say that specifically, we want people to come who are going to be well-spoken and professional, and it's amazing what some, it is important that we're respectful to legislators. We are asking them for help, and we don't want them to not help us because they don't like us or something along those lines.
You're right.
So on that day, though, Colorado NORML is hosting a lobby days. It starts at 11 o'clock. If you there at home want to get involved, I'd say come join us 11 o'clock on February 19th. And I think the details are on the Facebook page for Colorado NORML.
They are.
With the room that we're meeting in. And, I think that Representative Melton, I believe, will be speaking there, and we'll have some other speakers likely talking about the process. And then we're going to ask people that, we want to fill up that room at 1:30.
And even if you don't feel comfortable speaking, or maybe you feel like right now before you come and hear the speakers talk about how to do it, just having a full room where they look out and they don't see it's just a handful of people. I know a lot of people that go to the Capitol, they never testify, but we need those warm bodies.
Yes, we do. And in fact, I would put it this way too, that we only need a few people to testify. This is the direction that we've been getting, is that it would be better to have a few people testify and make really excellent points than a lot of people testify who are repeating or are getting off the subject of the bill, that just becomes an annoyance to legislators. So, but we want to fill up the room. So if you do not want to testify, come on down, fill up space in this place, and help us build that momentum and show that the support is there for this bill to happen.
Right.
And if you do testify, it's 3 minutes, right?
2 or 3 minutes, yeah.
2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
I forget what it's probably 2 actually.
And we're doing this in conjunction with Canada Patient Resource, and I think Americans for Safe Access Colorado is going to be part of it too. And we all have advocacy help, but to give you a good understanding of what he's talking about, I was at the governor's speech, and they had some anti-oil and gas people there, and the poor governor was coming in, and these people drape down this long banner, get really loud, and their message wasn't heard. That was an inappropriate way to do it. What they got was thrown out, and we have to respect the house that we're in. We wouldn't want anybody coming into our house and disrespecting, our ways of doing things. Well, it's the same thing. We have to respect the institution and the way things are done there. And we'll help you. We will be more than happy to help you and get you ready and feeling confident to go do that 3 minutes. So.
Yeah. Well, and this could be an opportunity to talk about some of the opposition, too, and sort of the chances of this committee hearing. So, first of all, this bill has, I don't think it's been tried in Colorado to do what we're doing. And really, the Colorado Supreme Court 5 years ago, I think, put it on the state legislature to do this. But, there wasn't a lot of oxygen or energy, I think, within the cannabis space to do a bill like this in the past few years. I mean, last year the Colorado General Assembly was considering clubs and delivery and the sunset of the entire licensing programs and many other bills. And so a lot of that stuff got resolved this last year, which has made this year a little bit more open for, more consumer-driven bills.
Right.
Which, I mean, really gets to Colorado NORML. And as a group, this is a consumer rights group. So I'm a board member of it.
Right.
Ashley Weber is the executive director of Colorado NORML. She was hoping to be here today, but was unable to make it, which we miss her, but she's great. She puts in a ton of time to advocate for consumer issues, which is a voice that largely gets ignored at the Capitol because it's not where the money is. But I guess I want to bring this to the opposition for the bill, which is I think we got a good bill and it makes a lot of sense. But the business community has had a lot, and I don't mean the cannabis business community, I mean the broader business community, have brought up a lot of concerns about.
I have to ask you about that.
Oh, sure.
Tell us some more about what happened to the state code and those concerns.
I'm sorry.
With the, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the businesses, the pushback.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the broader business community, like the main chambers of commerce for businesses that represent, big businesses many times. Many of them have come out with concerns and some opposition for the bill. And a lot of what they're saying is they're misconstruing the bill. Like they don't, some of it I think is very legit. And I think there's other pieces of it where there's just, they don't like cannabis and they do not want to give an inch to employee protections. And so, we look though at, there are exemptions built into this already, into the lawful off-duty activity statute as it stands right now. Those exemptions apply to the more sensitive jobs that you can think of. And I think many in the business community have just been confused and thinking, well, what about doctors or pilots or anything? Going through the list, and what about the federal stuff? And we've had to do a lot of education of just saying okay, doesn't apply. You got the exemption here. Look at the exemption. And for that part, that's been a good educational process, and I think we've neutralized, I think, some of the opposition by just getting some good education out there. But recently too, we've been hearing a couple people make the argument, though, that Amendment 64 guarantees businesses the right to do drug testing. It's as if though the business community wrote Amendment 64 to give them the right to do drug testing. And we've had to go through the languages and just explain to them that Amendment 64, it just maintained the status quo.
Right.
It didn't tell employers that they had to get rid of their drug testing policies, but the state legislature has the power to do this. And that has been our main point, that they have the power to do this. But some of the business community folks are saying that the state legislature, their hands are tied, they can't do this.
Right.
Which is just, it's awkward and wrong. We've seen that opposition, which is why we need people to show up to this hearing and show that people, Coloradans, actually care about this issue and can make it happen. Because right now that the money's not for consumer advocacy. The money is definitely on the side of the business community and their sort of lobbying. So this is definitely a difficult battle, and I don't know whether we'll get through this committee and whether we'll be able to pass this bill into law, but I think we all settled on this as being something that we're in the right. This Coates v. Dish Network decision it was just wrong-headed. It needs to be fixed. That this bill can do that fixing, and if we don't pass it this year, it took 4 years to get that PTSD bill. To make that a qualifying condition for the medical marijuana registry. And so, over time that, this can happen if it doesn't happen this year, but we all thought it was really worth the effort and worth the fight. Well,
it's a great first step, and I think once we get this in place, then we can start talking about the pre-screening and, hopefully we'll be at a place in the industry where it'll be more favorable to do that.
Well, and many other states have, well, one state, Maine, has what we're trying to do here. They have like this protection of lawful off-duty activities, that it's not the business of employers. But there's several states that have protected medical marijuana patients and their ability to consume cannabis for medical reasons. So several states have that, which Colorado does not. And that would be sort of the only similar thing that we've seen out there.
Right. Well, in talking about patients, what about our HIPAA? You know, where's our privacy in that? We have the Patient's Bill of Rights this year too that's coming out, and we're hoping to address some of those issues. But you know, if I take, and I went to a neurologist, I have it in writing, I'm so proud of it, I send it to our representatives every year, that says no pharmaceuticals needed, continue with the hemp oil. Well, it's a little bit more than hemp, but they didn't have that coating in their system. But it's a medicine, and what I take at night, it does not affect me during the day. And that's what they need to understand, that there's a big difference when it comes to that. You look like you're about to say something.
I wasn't. I was about.
It's kind of chilly in here, and we both are sitting with our hands.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I didn't know if you were cold, had to pee, or you.
No, it's cold in here.
It always is.
Yeah. So what about the business pushback?
Yeah.
Let's say I've got a big factory and I'm making auto parts, and I have guys who drive or forklifts and use heavy machinery. And maybe my concern is from working or from being in a company that had a big factory previous to the cannabis industry, I know that if like you wrecked a forklift, like you're taking a piss test.
Yeah.
And that would, I assume, look for alcohol and cannabis and all the other stuff that I don't know how many panel drug tests, but they did that for liability, not because they had any reason to believe that you were actually impaired. They did it to cover their ass. And so I could see all these people saying that, okay, well, I'm a construction company, so everybody who I employ is, using dangerous hammers or screwdrivers or
up in the air,
saws or up in the air, forklifts and backhoes. And
well, I know with liability insurance, if all of your people are regularly tested, you get a lower rate. That's a perk, especially if they have a dangerous job and you're getting involved like a construction company where there's OSHA and that sort of thing. You have to. That I understand. I understand that. But the guy that's doing customer service or working on a computer or not even engaging, with anything dangerous, why is that an issue for them?
Didn't Canada say that their off-duty, military can use cannabis? Didn't that happen? Or did I make that up?
That would be divine.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
We'll have to ask our cannabis people in Canada.
If you're from Canada, let us know what the deal is with the military, off-duty military and cannabis.
Our guest for Pride Week is from Canada, Renee. So we'll have to reach out.
When's Pride Week? April 1st?
No, that was in June.
June 1st?
It was in June.
Okay.
Travis, I think with when people are getting terminated because they fail the piss test, I'm sure there's a more
urinalysis.
That's the legal term.
We called it a piss test in the military.
Yeah, great. Well, yeah, I mean, the problem with those is that it stays in your urine even though you're not impaired. And so, it seems like they're creating a situation where a lot of employees are getting blamed for maybe workplace accidents because of these urine tests that doesn't show that someone was impaired at the job, much less does that show that they were responsible for the accident. Like, this sort of faulty way of thinking is it's like the status quo right now, though. That seems hugely problematic. It's not, certainly not fair.
Right. Well, I would be way more dangerous hungover from alcohol the next day. Like if on Super Bowl, everybody calls in the Monday after because everybody's hungover. I see that more as a safety issue than I do.
Or how about
cannabis
any of the
use.
pills that they will give to you that you can just go
heck
get free?
yeah.
All the SSRIs and benzodiazepines and
Right.
all of these crazy ass drugs are Chantix. Dude, if you get into an accident, they should test you for Chantix.
Why, for road rage?
You might have done it on purpose.
Yeah.
Because Chantix will mess you up. Mm-hmm. It's a nightmare pill. But if you want to quit smoking green turkey instead of slow turkey
Or Lyrica.
in your own time, yeah, you could take all these pills. It'll totally mess you up. They don't test you for that on the panel if you wreck a forklift. But
You know, my mother was like that. She was intoxicated 24/7 because somebody with MD behind their name, and she had good insurance. She was a wealthy woman with good insurance, and she did have a lot of medical issues. But she would take her medicine, take my brother and sister to school, and go home and lay down because she was drunk all day from it. And nobody thought anything, you know, because the doctor gave it to her. By golly, she has to take it every 4 hours, you know, never questioning. You know.
I want to bring up sort of the cannabis industry for a moment and how they're involved with this bill, House Bill
Sure.
1089. And to say right now that the response we've gotten has been basically a big, not our fight. And I guess I would implore people that are listening in that this is the cannabis industry's fight. Mm-hmm. I know, you know, for a lot of the lobbying groups that have money to go and do that at the Capitol, there's a lot of overlap with the business community and the cannabis industry lobbying, and so it's easy to let sort of the broader business community set the tone that this is for consumers and not our, you know, like we should be opposed to it or you know, or it's not our fight, that sort of thing. But you know, I put it this way: is there anything happening at the state capitol this year that stands to benefit the cannabis industry's bottom line more than this bill, House Bill 1089?
Right.
How many people in Colorado are not consuming cannabis because they're worried they're going to get fired from their job?
Tons.
And how many people do we have in Colorado? 5 or 6 million? I mean, is this number, is it in the hundreds of thousands? Is it maybe over 1 million? You know, like
Right.
15% or 20%? I don't know what the number is. I'd like to find that out. But I mean, here's the thing: there are people in Colorado that are not consuming cannabis because they're worried they're going to lose their job.
yep,
Yep.
tons of them.
The cannabis industry is there, should be there. They're going to be the ones financially benefiting from this. Mm-hmm. And so, I would say, I know this bill came out a little bit late. There wasn't a ton of time to get a lot of feedback and get the buy-in from a lot of the industry people. And but I'd say that now's the time to get involved. That they stand to gain a lot from this. I would hope that they won't be sitting on in the neutral zone. And one other thing too. I mean, their customers. This is their customers. This is the privacy rights of all of us, of everyone in Colorado. This is about our privacy rights. That is why we have a lawful off-duty activity statute in Colorado that protects our right to consume alcohol right now outside the workplace.
And
it is to protect our privacy.
Yeah, and this casts huge. This isn't just dispensaries that will benefit. This is the
Of course.
all of
Cultivation,
the different,
manufacturing,
every
everyone.
part of it. And there's just so many untapped reserves of customers that all these businesses could have if they joined in with us and got behind it.
I think a lot of them are already using it and just, crossing their fingers that they're not going to get tested. Just rolling the dice.
Should I tell on myself? In between the job of my life right now, I've been going to work with fake urine in my underclothes just in case I'm popped. So I'm living this. And I finally had to quit and I told him, I said, look, I've got a lot going on health-wise. I can no longer pass your drug test. Mm-hmm. And, I felt just so wrong. But if it wasn't for cannabis, I couldn't hold down a job. I would be in too much pain. I'd be too drunk from pharma. So it's we got to do this. We really got to do this.
So February 19th at 11 o'clock, Colorado State Capitol. That's when the patients.
That's the lobby days.
That's when the lobby days begin. And then at 1:30 at the State Capitol, we need a few really good stories that people can tell in 3 minutes as to why Colorado needs to pass Colorado House Bill 20-1089 to ease up restrictions on employment drug tests.
Right, and of course, email your senators and your representatives.
Yeah, actually, and to specifically to email the committee members on the House Business and Labor Committee. That's really the only people we want people emailing right now. They are the ones who have the vote that's coming up on February 19th. And once again, we don't want to bother legislators that are not on this committee with this yet, because it's not ripe for them to be considering right now.
Who's on this committee? How do we find out?
Yeah.
Is there a list online that we can look up?
Can we post this on yes. So if people, it's easy to Google the Colorado House. It's the Committee on Business and Labor.
Committee on Business and Labor.
I forget, like 11 or 13 members on this committee, and I think to email all of them. This is Colorado NORML is going to be putting out some information about this, like a sample letter. So I think if you plug into Colorado NORML's Facebook page, that's probably how we can get you a draft script. But then let me just sort of clarify with people too that, to stay focused on what this bill is doing, because this is not going to stop pre-employment drug tests. I would support that, but that's not what this bill is doing.
Right.
And it's not going to allow people to consume at work. This is all about off-duty activity being done lawfully, stuff outside the workplace. So to please stay focused on that. And protecting our privacy rights, and how really do employers need to be involved with this for privacy reasons? And I think the answer is clearly no. It's not their business. So to stay focused on that when they're emailing these committee members. But yes, let's get lots of emails to those committee members and show them that we support this.
Good deal. And then when we're ready to go bigger, we'll go bigger.
We'll let people know. Yeah, it's all timing. We don't want to upset legislators. We don't want to waste the time of people that are willing to do this sort of outreach. So emails to your committee members, and then show up on February 19th.
Now on the 10th, there is a Colorado NORML meeting at the Ozone here in Lakewood. So I want to make sure I put that out there too.
What time?
At 6. Did she make it 6:30?
I'm not sure.
I'm missing that one. I would almost guarantee I'm going to miss that one. But we'll make sure that that's on this feed too.
Are you comfortable telling us why you're going to miss it?
Yeah, I have to go get a biopsy done.
On what?
On my breast. This looks. I've been telling doctors for the past year that I had felt a lump under my arm, and they dismissed it. I did the ultrasounds, and it got worse, and then it started having breast changes. And I finally got a doctor. It was time for more scans, and it looks really bad. So we're doing the biopsies Monday at 10. And I can't just go in because of my epilepsy and do a local. The last time I did a local for the biopsy, the last time I had breast cancer.
Local anesthetic.
Local
like
anesthetic,
lidocaine shots.
Yeah, kind of like that. Because of my nerve disorder, I can't be deadened enough. So I literally felt everything. I felt being cut open. I felt being clipped. My husband was holding my feet down, and for the next year of my life, I would wake up screaming in a cold sweat that I was reliving that. So we're not doing that to me again. And then I had seizures from the trauma of it. So the neurologist has a very specific plan For me, I have to be at the cardiovascular center because I do have heart issues too, and they will be extremely careful with me and probably fill me full of benzo so I don't have a seizure afterwards. So that's what I'm doing Monday. So everybody kind of keep me in your thoughts. And
Good luck.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's so much.
Yeah, I've been, what's so frustrating is I told them a year ago.
So that's on the exact same day?
Exact same day. And
Well, February 10th.
February
Yeah.
10th.
February
Yeah.
10th, Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
So everybody,
So, yeah, and so
Best wishes.
thanks. And, I've got good people around me to check on me and take me and be with me. And the biggest thing is knocking me out. I am so relieved. I don't think I could live through that, being able to feel it again. That was horrific.
The stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, yeah, and I have enough nightmares. Thank you. I don't need round 2 of this. So here we go. So, if it's positive, then I am going to. Let me tell you this first. There was a time my sister called me and she said, every time you have something difficult in your life, you don't have to turn into a martyr over it. Well, yeah, I do. Well, why else is it happening to me if I wasn't supposed to do something with it? So I'm going to do something with it. If it's positive, I will reach out to Arcana Medical Family and be very, very loud while I'm the best marketing director Colorado NORML has ever seen. And just use that as my badge to bring more awareness. So it'll be fine. Whatever it is, it'll be fine.
Well, I'm worried about you.
I'm worried about me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm known for a good tough bluff, but I'm.
I want to say hi to people who've tuned in.
Yes.
I've been negligent in doing this. I can't. It's
Oh,
like Britt
yeah.
Lee, Jenny Gold. Mm-hmm. Britt says you look fabulous. Angie Valdez, Michael Jacobs, Michael Miller, Michael Canada.
All
We got
right.
all the Michaels.
Mark Porter. Hey, Mark.
Mark Porter.
Oh,
Green
that's the
Crane
Green Crane campaign. Yay.
Hashtag I stand with Marley. Hashtag I stand with Ben.
Yeah.
The greencranecampaign.com. Catherine Sky Tomlinson. Mm-hmm. Brian Rainwater. Thanks for joining.
Yes.
How we doing on time? It's starting to get there. Do you know any jokes?
Nothing that feels appropriate for this podcast.
Nobody's
And I
ever
know
got any
7-year-old jokes too, so I have
jokes.
two.
Tell me a
extremes.
7-year-old joke.
Oh, really?
You know.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana who?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Banana.
Banana who?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Orange.
Orange who?
Orange, you glad I didn't say
banana.
Yeah.
Bonk, bonk, bonk.
That's the start of my stand-up career. Thank you. That's
Did you grow up in Colorado?
yeah.
Yeah.
Colorado Springs.
Do you believe in Sasquatch?
Sasquatch. And I'd have to see it to believe it, really.
That sign on Pikes Peak doesn't make you believe?
No. Sign, no.
What about the alien activity in Colorado?
In Colorado,
UFOs?
well, my dad was born in Roswell, actually.
Nice.
So there is like an alien bloodline in my background, I think.
There you go. I knew I liked you for some reason.
Yeah. But no, I do believe in aliens, though, if we're going to go there for a minute. I mean, just if you ask Google how many stars there are, how many stars do you think exist?
A billion stars.
It's more than
A billion galaxies.
It was, yeah, that's right. Galaxies.
There's a
Galaxy.
billion galaxies,
So
each with a billion stars.
It's like septillion is the number, some number I've never heard before. That it can only be equated to the number of grains of sand on Earth.
Yeah.
Grains of sand on Earth. So yeah, something's living out
It's
there.
a very arrogant and ignorant man that thinks that there's nothing else out there, that we are the only ones.
Yeah. still, I don't think that like they're chilling amongst us or anything. Although some of our elected leaders seem like perhaps maybe the aliens
Could
did
be.
secretly take over.
Yeah, at some point in time. At some point in time.
So, February 19th. Okay, first, February 10th at
is-
about 6:30 at the Ozone in Lakewood, Chris Morwood's place. There's a normal meeting. And then February 19th at 11 o'clock, there's patients, what's it called? Patients, what day?
Well, it's lobby days.
Lobby days, that's it. Lobby days.
And we will
We forgot to say that that's being done in conjunction with Bridget from.
No, I mentioned
Oh, you
it.
did?
Yeah.
Okay. So 11 o'clock, show up at the Capitol to scheme about to do the patient lobby days. And then at 1:30, February 19th, Colorado State Capitol, we need a few really good stories for people to tell, 3 minutes apiece, in the Committee on Business and Labor.
Especially if you're a business.
Yeah. House Bill 20-1089, Colorado State Capitol, February 19th, 11
Please be
o'clock,
there. Yeah.
then 1:30. We need people to just show up and sit in the seats as well.
Right.
Show support.
Right.
And if people want to plan or want to reach out, like they've got a good story that they can tell, how should they do that? Who do they reach out to?
If they want to, I think maybe get in touch with Ashley or myself. I mean, through either the Colorado NORML pages, or I can share my email address here too in a minute for people if they want to reach out to me directly. But that's one way. But people can just show up to our lobby days and show up to this committee hearing as well.
Right.
If you've got a great story, then please let us know so we can just be aware of it and help make sure that there's time for your testimony and whatnot. Quickly, can I share my email
Yeah.
address?
Sure.
I'll give, this is my company email address, but it's mike.mre, like Michael Russell Elliott, MRE Legal Consulting @gmail.com. Mike.mre Legal Consulting @gmail.com. So people are welcome to reach out to me about this specific bill. And then this is my company email address. I'm an attorney. I do compliance. Applications, political advocacy, lobbying, and more. So people are welcome to reach out to me otherwise. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Well, Michael Elliott, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Julie, for setting this up. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And I want to watch this, see if this works.
Hey,
Yeah.
it does.
So, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back on as soon as possible next week. Julie's got some stuff to go through,
Yep.
and we'll be thinking about you.
Thank you.
And as always, I'm Travis Lippert, reminding you, if you don't get hemp here, get hemp somewhere.